This is kind of an interesting story, and this has been I turned on Twitter this morning / last night, and I see everybody, all the accounts I'm normally following, and they're just yelling at each other over H-1B visas and immigration and all this crazy stuff. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Elon Musk and Vivek and Trump supporters and people from England and everybody's just screaming about visas. And I said, what the heck is going on with this stuff? Well, to give a very brief summary, I'll try to make it short because I don't want to go too in deep on this, but I do think it is an interesting topic that is really causing a rift between Trump supporters and Vivek and Elon. Not a permanent risk, not a permanent rift, but definitely one where people are like, oh, great. Now Elon and Vivek are not going to be working with Trump on this stuff. If right now there's a fight on illegal immigration. We've got these illegals pouring across the border. They're being given status of either citizenship or a visa or a way to work here in the United States by the Biden administration. And many of those people coming here are working for very cheap. There are, and I know that of a case where I actually saw this firsthand. I met somebody firsthand that was an illegal that came here, then went through the process, became legal, but were still working under the table. And there were 4 or 5 of them renting out a single studio apartment, and they were just crashing out on the floor. And by working for less than everybody else, they had more jobs and more work than they could possibly physically do. So they were working like 16 and 18 hours a day. They were splitting rent by 6 or 8 times. So a $1,200 single bedroom or a single studio apartment they're just crashing out on the floors on mattresses. And there were 6 of them in there. So they're each paying $200 for the rent and the electric, and they're hoarding cash. And then with the hoarded cash, they either go home after a couple years to their native and take care of their families for, decades based on all that money, or they're sending that money home and not supporting the economy that they're taking it from. I know of this. Then you've got HB1V or H-1B visas, which are the engineers, the top 1%ers that are coming here with engineering degrees from China and from India, and they're taking tech bro jobs, basically. They're coming in and they're engineers and they have Cisco certifications and they get these tech bro jobs. And because they're willing to work for less than an American, because the American may have a family or he may have a home or he may have cars, that immigrant comes here and they got nothing. And so they move to a cheap apartment. They're willing to live in standards well below what many Americans would want to live in. Again, if you go to India, you kind of know what I'm talking about. There's not many places in India I feel comfortable, and they're comfortable with it. So when they move here, it's like it's a palace to live in a shithole in New York City, and they can accept less money, and then they either save it up and they get promoted, and then they do well for themselves here, or they send the money back home and they leave. A lot of people came here to get giveaways when it comes to scholarships and things like that to get a medical degree here in the United States. And then they rack up all this debt. And this is a thing, you can look this up. They rack up all this school debt and then they bounce back to their home country with the degree and the knowledge they got here. And they leave the credit card debt and the car debt and the rent and their college debt. They've racked it up. They just leave it behind because they don't have a credit system over there. They don't have credit card checking and what's your FICO score and all. They just racked it up and left. So there's a lot of people that are like, hey, I don't like American jobs going to these H-1B visas either. And I was a network engineer that worked for Cisco. I saw this all the time. First, before we get into it, let me quickly read from today's sponsor, the wellness company, Healthcare Without the Propaganda. The holidays are here, which also means it's sick season, sinus infections, strep throat, upper respiratory hacking. Everyone is traveling and passing it all around. But guess what? You don't have to deal with it this year, folks. Why? Because this little blue case is your mobile urgent care. It has ivermectin, Z-Pak, amoxicillin, and 6 other prescription medications at your fingertips. Thanks to the Wellness Company's medical emergency kit, you can tackle anything severe your body comes across without ruining your holiday plans and winding up in urgent care. This kit cuts through all the red tape by allowing you to take control of your health versus being reactive and inconvenienced during precious family time or solo time. You don't need a gatekeeper because their medical board created a guidebook that outlines common treatments for UTIs, strep throat, bacterial infections, respiratory illnesses, and more. All it takes is filling out a digital intake form and your kit arrives at your door in 1 to 2 weeks. Travel with peace of mind this holiday season. Order your kit now by heading to twc.health/oddmanout and use code oddmanout, all one word. It saves up to $30 off and free shipping, U.S. residents only. Again, that's twc.com/oddmanout. All one word. You'll know you're at the right page when you see this beautiful man who looks somewhat like me, except slightly younger and thinner, who was backpacking around the world. You'll know you're on the right page if that's where you go. I honestly wish I had one of these kits, man. When I was in Peru, I got the Travelers run, and it wiped me out for a week. Painful, I tell you. One of our teams, we had a bug testing team that we would write, that we had programmers, software programmers. They would write the code for like a switch, right? A network switch. And they'd write the code, and they would put it on the machines, and they would test it to make sure there wasn't any bugs, and then it would get released to corporations that had our networking switches, like AT&T, like Disney, like Comcast Cable with some of the accounts we had, because they had our switches, and they'd install the software, and then a bug would pop up, and we'd have our team that would fix it. Well, pretty soon, the code writers, the people that wrote the code, that code writing went to India. Now, there's a department of 200 dudes that used to write code that got paid $100,000 plus a year. They all got laid off, and those jobs went to India, and they were paying those engineers $5,000 to $10,000 each, or maybe it's $10,000 to $20,000 each in India. So those 100 guys, now you could hire 1,000 in India for the same amount of money. Well, there goes the writing team, but then they'd send the code back, and it'd get tested here, and then the American engineers would clean up the code. And then we'd go through the process. Now, I know I'm going down a train. This is literally firsthand information of what everybody's screaming about today happened to me. So I can explain this very, very well. Next thing you know, not only were the programmers overseas, then the developers went overseas. Then the testers went overseas. Then some of the engineers went overseas. And when they needed to be on site, the jobs went over to H-1B visa holders, and they came over here. And now we have a lot of Indians and Chinese and Japanese, a couple of Japanese engineers. Now they're here in the United States on these H-1B visas, and they're taking $50,000 a year salary. They're living modestly well here in the United States. And the network engineer that worked hard for 20 years and got his degrees and got his all this stuff and was worth $120,000 a year at the time, well, now he's out of a job. So now an American that helped train some of these people, that set up the whole infrastructure of Cisco, now that the infrastructure is done, and now they can export these jobs, and now they can import people on H-1B visas, now the Americans are laid off. And now you're losing an American that used to get $120,000, that was supporting a family and had his own house and was doing right and living the American dream. He's not out of a job. And in his place is somebody here on an H-1B visa that's making $50,000 a year, living very cheaply, saving the money, hoping to become an American. What happens when he becomes an American? Now he demands the American salary. And now he's competing directly with the American engineer. Or he doesn't get a citizenship. He's here for 1 to 2 to 3 years. Then he keeps the job, but just goes back to India and is a remote worker. And now that job's overseas. And that's what's happening. And it's hollowing out. It's hollowing out the tech industry. It's hollowing out engineers. It's hollowing out people that actually do the work that are Americans. That's part of America First. It's not just the country America First. It's Americans first. American corporations taking care of the people here in America. But they're not doing that because it's all about the bottom line. It's all about making the most income. It's all about the biggest return to shareholders. And that's the problem we're getting into. And Vivek and Elon came out in support of the H-1B visas. The Trump supporters, which are the MAGA/America First people, are saying that's not America First, dude. And I'm gonna read some examples of this. But again, the summary here that I'm telling you is probably the easiest way to get the whole story. And it is very complex, but it is important, because then if you say, yes, but Americans can't do these jobs, so we need to bring in people, these engineers from other countries, because Americans here are not learning engineering. They're learning about diversity and patriarchy and gender inclusion and all this other stuff. If that's what they're teaching at college and they're not learning the engineering things, the fix for this is not bringing in foreign engineers. The fix for this is fixing our education system here to make and learn and teach the best engineers. That's the fix. So instead of importing engineers because you can't educate them here, fix our education system. Then train Americans. Then hire Americans. Then Americans will put money back into America instead of sending it overseas. That sums up the whole fight that's going on right now. From Newsweek, MAGA's civil war erupts. That's not true in any way, shape, or form. That is Newsweek being hyperbolic. MAGA's civil war erupts as Trump backers turn on Vivek Ramaswamy over H-1B visas. The MAGA universe has been riven by an ongoing online debate over H-1B visa program in the U.S. Supporters of President-elect Donald Trump have taken aim in particular at Vivek Ramaswamy, the one-time GOP presidential hopeful and incoming co-chief to the Department of Government Efficiency. Ramaswamy drew backlash from Trump and self-declared MAGA voters on Thursday when he voiced his support for bringing highly skilled workers from other countries, including his native India, into the U.S. via the H-1B program, which focuses on foreign workers in specialized occupations. The reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over Native Americans isn't because of an innate American IQ deficit, a lazy and wrong explanation, he wrote on X. A key part of it comes down to the C word, culture. Tough questions demand tough answers, and if we're really serious about fixing the problem, we have to confront the truth. Our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long, at least since the 90s and likely longer. That doesn't start in college, it starts young. Now here's his full post. A culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. Let's stop here. I agree. I agree that if we're a culture that celebrates Cardi B instead of Elon Musk or Tesla, Nikola Tesla, not Tesla the company, if we're not celebrating Nikola Tesla, we're not celebrating Albert Einstein, we're not celebrating Carl Sagan, right? If we're not celebrating them, but instead we're celebrating, Cardi B and Kim Kardashian, I agree that is problematic. Do we fix that by bringing in foreigners? Or do we look at our education system? Do we look at where young people are finding these pop stars to celebrate? Is that on TikTok? Let's fix TikTok. What age you can use it? Is that a school education problem? Let's take a look at that. Is it a family problem where we have too many single moms, not enough fathers that are disciplining in the home? Let's take a look at that. This goes right back to the same way everybody thinks about problems today. Oh my goodness, I have lopped my arm off. Let me just start putting Band-Aids on it. Well, I'm still flowing, man. It's dripping all over the floor. I'm starting to get lightheaded. I think I've lost 4 pints. Well, let's put some more Band-Aids on it then. Or do you say, let's get to the heart of this problem? Number 1, we got to seal up that wound. Number 2, what caused the problem in the first place? And let's have a discussion about that. If it's about families, we discuss it. It's about relationships and marriage and single moms, we discuss that. Is it about our education system, upper education? Is it social media? Have that discussion. What you don't do is, well, let's import foreigners that aren't in this culture. That's because eventually you're just going to replace the culture. And that's what's got so many people upset about this. Is you're just basically saying like, okay, our culture sucks, so replace the culture with other cultures. That's not putting Americans first. That's not fixing the American culture. You're just replacing it at that point. And that's what's got a lot of people pissed off, that we're not going to the root cause of the problem. He said, fact, I know multiple sets of immigrant parents in the 90s who actively limited how much their kids could watch those TV shows precisely because they promoted mediocrity. And their kids went on to become wildly successful STEM graduates. Okay, so the immigrant parents didn't let their kids watch trash. Good. That's great. So let's make American parents do that as well. Let's get it to where American parents are still married and still supportive of their children and still have time to teach them at home, because it's a household that keeps a parent home instead of latchkey kids. Maybe they've got two parents. We don't even have that. That's part of the problem too, as is our education. How long have we been screaming about LGHD TV indoctrination in schools? How much of it has been pulled from schools? How many kids are graduating high school and they can't do fifth grade math and English reading? They can't write cursive. They can't do basic arithmetic in their head. They can't read an analog clock. They don't know which countries make up North America. And then you're like, well, it's a cultural problem. No, it's all problem, but you can't replace. You're basically saying, let's bring in foreigners, and then Americans will be the slave dummies, and these smart foreigners coming in. That's not how you fix any of this. And it's less about bringing in the foreigners, for me at least. It's less about bringing in the educated foreigners. To me, it's more about, how about educating Americans? How about fixing the problems here in America instead of patching them and selling them out to another country and for the people to the other country? He says, most normal Americans look skeptically at those kinds of parents. No, they don't. Why would we look skeptically at those kind of parents? Wait, I missed a paragraph. Okay, let me correct this, because I don't want to misconstrue. He says, more movies like Whiplash, fewer reruns of Friends, more math tutoring, fewer sleepovers, more weekend science competitions, fewer Saturday morning cartoons, more books, less TV, more creating, less chilling, more extracurriculars, less hang out at the mall. Now he says, most normal American parents look skeptically at those kind of parents. More normal American kids view those kind of kids with scorn. If you grew up aspiring to normalcy, normalcy is what you will achieve. Now, I will say this much. We did have a couple of weird, nerdy kids that couldn't do anything because they had to study all the time. And they were the weird kids that came from families like that. And they weren't really weird, but we called them weird. They were kind of nerds. They were kind of awkward. We made fun of them a little bit. Where are they today? I don't know. I didn't keep up with anybody from high school, because who gives a shit? If I'm just being honest. But you can have a little bit of both. You know, our class valedictorian was also the quarterback for our high school football team. Let me tell you, that guy, he had some attention from the ladies. He was a tall quarterback, good-looking guy. He was also incredibly intelligent. He got all the attention. But he was still in sports. He was still popular. He was still friendly. Just because a kid studies and is smart doesn't mean they have to be a weirdo. Again, we're mashing together ideas as if it's one or the other, when it doesn't really have to be either. There were a lot of very, very intelligent kids in my school, and they participated in band, and they had friends, and some of them went on to be in the school play. Others played sports. You can have it all. It just depends on what kind of family you come from. But I'll tell you what kind of family they did come from. Mom and dad were both in the picture. Mom and dad told them to strive for excellence, and mom and dad did that pushing them for this from a young age. So you can have it all, and it can be considered normal. But it requires family, and it requires good education, and we don't have either anymore right now. So let's find out why. Why are Asian kids in and out performing better than white kids? Why are white kids in and out performing better than Hispanic kids? Why are Hispanic kids performing in and out better than black kids? It has nothing to do with the skin color. It has everything to do with the parents and their staying together and being married and pushing their kids to bigger and better things. That's where it really matters. And we don't have any of that anymore. So let's fix that first. Let's fix the culture first, then fix the education and the marriage and all this stuff. Not just replace it. He said, now close your eyes and visualize which families you knew in the 90s or even now who raised their kids according to one model versus the other. Be brutally honest. Normalcy doesn't cut it in hyper-competitive global market for technical talent. I disagree. I am about as normal an idiot as you can get. I did very well in the technical world. I got promoted from just being a temp, contracted worker at Cisco. Within 3 months, I was full-time, and within 6 months or 8 months, I was one of the leads of my team. I was writing the schedules. We were leading teams. We were sitting down and going to trainings and doing technical talk. I got the opportunity to co-manage, and then eventually I wasn't a manager. I was the team lead, if we're going to be really clear. So I wasn't managing, but I was the team lead. In a year, I don't even have I don't even have a college degree. Barely passed high school. What changed? Work ethic. I worked my ass off, and I studied. As an adult, after I had the job, I was always looking up stuff. It's work ethic. So you don't have to have this hyper-competitive market and the technical talent and bring in all the geniuses from other countries. You just need hard workers. You need people with the aptitude and the hunger to learn and the hunger to work hard. We don't have that anymore. Why? Because school, because family, because we don't have anybody pushing anything. And the people that do study and do very well, if they're white and male, we punish them. And if they didn't do very well and they didn't study very hard, but they're female and they're gay and they're black, then they get the job. Well, that's going to take a lot of wind out of the people's sails too. Again, it does boil down to culture, but he says this can be our Sputnik moment. We awaken from slumber before we can do it again. Trump's election hopefully marks the beginning of a new golden era in America, but only if our culture fully wakes up, a culture that once again prioritizes achievement over normalcy, excellence over mediocrity, nerdiness over conformity, hard work over laziness. I agree with that, but you don't just magically make that happen. You have to fix the culture, my dude. You don't just bring in engineers from other countries. And this is where the screaming started from other people, because they said, exactly, now fix us. Fix us. Don't start talking about H-1B visas. Cernovich says the Woodstock generation managed to build out aerospace. The one before went to the moon. America was doing great. Underlying your post is that we were all living in squalor until being rescued by H-1Bs. Then why did everybody want to come here? Vivek said that version of America, the one that used to be embodied unbridled exceptionalism, is exactly what I want to return to. That's a point about culture, not immigration policy. And he's right, it is about culture. But then why do you need the visas? Look, they were saying something like we need 300,000 engineers by 2035 or something like that. Maybe it was even sooner than that, 2032 or something. Okay, you got 7 to 10 years where you're going to need hundreds of thousands of engineers. You've got a couple of options. A, import the world. Have them be our techno lords. B, train the people here. The people that want to work hard. The people that show aptitude. The people that are hungry. The people that will work hard. Train them to be the engineers. Are there 300,000 men and maybe some women here that are hardworking, intelligent, that would love to be an engineer, making 6 figures a year if given the opportunity? Yes. Right here in America. I bet you could find 300,000 of them in Texas alone. You got plenty of time. So why don't we do it here? And if you say we can't because of our education system, okay, now.
Ding, ding, ding. What do we have for her, Johnny?
Now you got it. Now that's where we got to focus on and fix that crap. You can't just import it. So anyway, again, the insults started flying. People started screaming. Even Jeremy over at the Quartering, if you know him, he said, I do not like this tweet. And somebody pulled up, anyway, before I get to that, Elon jumped on it. He said the fixed pie fallacy is at the heart of much wrong-headed economic thinking. There's essentially infinite potential for job and company creation. And he got a bit of pushback on this post because, you know, what he's saying is, well, excuse me. What he's saying is essentially, look, there's plenty enough room for Americans, for foreigners coming over with the H-1B visa, that there's plenty of pie for everybody. But the truth is, there's not right now. How many young men are out there that are saying, I got a degree, I can't find a job. I'm educated, but they're not hiring me. They're only hiring for my diversity. What happens when you have companies and CEOs and these company boards saying, we don't want white men anymore. We're going to hire brown people. We're going to hire gay people. We're going to hire women. What do? They say, we're going to bring these people in on H-1B visas because they meet our diversity quotas, and we're not going to hire American white men because they don't meet our diversity quotas. Now, what happens when you desperately need engineers and there are no diversity people to meet it, but you need those engineers? And there's just not enough, LGHD TV women to apply. Now you're forced to hire the white male workers. But if you can use these visas and bring in foreigners that are female or brown and they meet your woke quotas for these companies, that's what they're going to do. And so this H-1B visas are being misused. And they are. I know this because I was in a company that replaced us and we didn't need to be replaced. They got rid of people that were qualified to do the work and gave it to people that weren't qualified to do the work that we had to train, and then they replaced many of our people. H-1B is supposed to be used when you don't have the people here in the country that are able to do the job. And what this visa has been used for is to replace the people here that can do the job with foreigners that'll get paid less, that meet diversity quotas, and then eventually take over the jobs that we men formerly had. And you can say, oh, well, you don't know. I was there. I saw it happen firsthand to my friends and coworkers. And it was specifically these H-1B visas going out to Chinese and Indian engineers. And in the beginning, there was one or two, and I understand it's not super diverse. We probably had one or two women. We probably had one or two Indian, one or two Chinese. I think there were one or two Latinos, one or two black dudes, and probably 10 or 15 white guys. Because that's pretty much the diversity of the population here in the United States, if you want to be real frank about it. If you broke down our team, broken down by the population of the United States, I think Asian men were overrepresented and females were underrepresented. But other than that, as far as black and Latino and white and all this other stuff, it was pretty much on par to our population. And in the end, what did it look like? 1,000 Indians in India. And the management team, 7 Indian people, no white people, no women. That's not diversity anymore. That's just a whole bunch of Indian people. And even, matter of fact, ironically, the Indian managers got rid of the Chinese guys that were working for us. So in the end, it was all Indian people. And you can hate on me all you want. You can call me all these names you want. But the truth is, that's really what happened over at Cisco. It happened to a department that was literally in the same floor I was, just one bank of cubicles over. And in the end, they were all gone. It was all changed. I have nothing negative against the guys that replaced the Americans. Am I mad at the Indian guys that wanted to come over and have a better life and use these visas to make more money, to live the American dream? I'm not even mad at them. I'm not mad at them. They did nothing wrong. I feel bad for the Americans that got replaced, so who am I actually mad at? I'm mad at the management that misused these visas and did this to Americans working in an American company on American soil in Raleigh, North Carolina, and replaced entire teams of white dudes with Indians coming from India. I'm mad at the corporation, and they could do that because they misused the visa, and that's why a bunch of us want these visas to go away. That's why one of the reasons why I'm not in tech industry anymore. You know, Elon Musk replied to this. He said, this is an interesting, this is coming from Andrea Strappa. There's a good write-up. It says, this is a proud SpaceX Neuralink AI investor, a Tesla shareholder. He said, this is an interesting conversation or confrontation between tech bros and MAGA loyalists. The MAGA loyalists primarily accuse Elon Musk of favoring foreign skilled workers, claiming he's betraying the idea of America first. The first misunderstanding is Elon Musk is not a tech bro. Rather, he could be considered a manufacturing bro. Most of his products are tangible, real-world items. The second misunderstanding among MAGA loyalists is about the vision. Elon understands that if America slows down its innovation, it will no longer be the world's leading power. The consequences of this would extend beyond just a decline in GDP rank. It would affect the influence on Western society as a whole. To put it simply, being second in industries like automotive, AI, or aerospace means not only losing money, but also shifting the Western world, including Europe, into something entirely different. But this is where he gets it wrong. Yes, he's right that MAGA loyalists are worried about America first, but you're making it sound like without these visas, we're not going to stay top dog. And that's incorrect. A new study published by the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences of the United States of America counters the persistent myth that the United States is falling behind in STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. The study looked at the skills of computer programmer graduates around the world by using a standardized programming test. The study strikes several blows to the great American STEM shortage myth. Blow number 1 to the myth. The study found that seniors in the United States exhibit much higher levels of computer science skills than seniors in China, India, and Russia. Blow number 2 to the myth. Although seniors in elite programs score much higher than seniors in non-elite programs in China, India, and Russia, they still score lower than seniors in the United States. Now, seniors, they're talking about college seniors. Blow number 3 to the STEM myth. U.S. computer science seniors from elite schools greatly outperform computer science seniors from elite schools in foreign countries. Blow number 4 to the STEM myth. The substantial advantage of computer science students in the United States is not driven by the persistence or the presence of international students. Collectively, foreign computer programmers do not bring higher skills to America. They simply bring cheap labor. And that is the argument that the MAGA and the Make America crowd, Make America Great Again, and America First people are screaming about. It's not that we're not smart enough. It's not even that we don't have the engineers. It's not even that we don't have the people willing or able to take the jobs. We actually have the superior people in the United States and in the West. So why are they bringing in decidedly inferior engineers? Is this the right button? Let me pull down my volume.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
That's what it's about. It's all about the money. Cisco can get rid of 100 American engineers, and they can get 300 or 400 Indian, or in this case, they use Russia or Chinese engineers. And with that workforce, their productivity may go down, their skill levels may go down, but you get 10 times the amount of engineers for less money. So eventually they'll come up with the right product, and maybe it'll work out as well. There was a story. I don't know if I can find this. Let me open this up in a new tab. Give me just a moment, because this is off the top of my head. I'll pause. So if I'm pausing a lot, that's why. Boeing doubles down on Indian software programmers despite billions in losses and 346 dead after 2 crashes. Airline industry experts can't believe what they're hearing. Boeing is looking to recruit even more programmers from India to write code for their flight systems. This comes after the company saw billions in losses and hundreds of people dead in 2 separate crashes of their 737 MAX jet, in which Boeing hired $9 per hour programmers to write code for the jet's flight system. In March 17th, Bloomberg article, Boeing confirmed plans to hire 1,000 employees from India over the coming year. This comes at the same time the company will begin laying off 2,000 American workers. This is exactly what I am talking about right here. This is from March 19th of 2023. This is why there are so many people that are pissed off about what these visas are doing to American workers, and why the American people, the American first people, are now angry at Elon and Vivek for saying what they're saying. Because they say, oh, we're only hiring the top 0.1% of people, and we're getting the best engineers in the world, and we need to bring these people on board if we're going to stay relevant. And the truth of it is, maybe that's how Elon operates. Maybe that's how Vivek operates. But the truth of it is, these H-1B visas are being misused by companies like Boeing, and it's coming at the expense of 2,000 American workers' jobs. It picks up 1,000 Indian workers at $9 an hour, and this is after these jets crashed because of software programming that left 346 people dead. Does Boeing care? No. They don't care about the losses. They care about the monetary losses, but not the people that were lost. They don't care about the American workers they laid off. They care about 1,000 new employees at $9 an hour. So it has nothing to do with Elon talking about the slice of the pie fallacy and all this other crap. It has exactly to do with these greedy corporations are kicking out American workers and hiring foreign workers and bringing them here on visa for $9 an hour. Or if they're not bringing them here for $9 an hour, they're sending the jobs there for $9 an hour, and they're remote working. This is what everybody's up in arms about over this. Lastly, I'll play this. This is from CBS Morning News. They interview other people other than myself that were in the tech industry, and you can hear basically the same story that I said happened to me and some of my friends at Cisco. They're telling you the same damn thing happened.
American workers are losing jobs because of a law designed to help the job market. The H-1B visa bill was written in 1990. It lets companies recruit foreign talent for emerging engineering and scientific jobs. But loopholes allow for outsourcing of American jobs to foreign workers, often at lower pay. Bill Whitaker spoke to some Americans displaced by H-1B visa workers for Sunday's 60 Minutes. They say they were asked to train workers who would take their jobs.
It wasn't called training your replacement. It was called knowledge transfer.
Craig D'Angelo worked for Northeast Utilities, now called Eversource, and was one of 220 IT workers replaced by H-1B visa employees. D'Angelo says his replacement, a worker from India, told him he was making half D'Angelo's salary with no benefits.
I didn't get laid off for lack of work. I got laid off because somebody cheaper could do my job.
We met with this group of workers who all had to train replacements. Leo Pereiro had just received high performance reviews from Disney. When he was called into a personnel meeting, he expected a raise and a promotion.
And instead,
I was given the news that in 90 days, my job was over, and I had to train my replacement. Never in my life did I imagine, until this happened at Disney, that I could be sitting at my desk and somebody would be flown in from another country, sit at my same desk and chair, and take over what I was doing. It was the most humiliating and demoralizing thing I've ever gone through in my life.
And that's Disney. Now, of course, this poor gentleman is middle-aged white and a male, straight male, so he's part of the patriarchy. So Disney was certainly happy to get rid of him and replace him with a brown person, because then they meet diversity quotas, but also they got him for half price. And the problem is when people say this, right? When people say, oh, you're just picking on Indians, or oh, you're just saying this because of brown people. No, it has nothing to do with skin color or nationality or anything else. It has the fact to do with American jobs are getting replaced at the high levels, at the high earning income. It's these H-1B visas. At the low levels, like we've been hearing about, Biden got rid of, or the Biden administration, Native Americans, I think in summary, lost over 1 million jobs, if I remember my stats correctly, from one of the videos I did previously. Native-born American workers, 1 million of them more are unemployed in the last 4 years. But these illegal immigrants that are now working in these factories in Ohio, where they're eating the dogs and eating the cats, those factories, now they brought in a couple thousand workers. But they're immigrants here illegally, and then were given a visa to stay and worker status. And the guy says, oh, they're hard workers and they save me money. Well, yeah, they're hard workers. They're hungry for the American dream. And yes, they will accept more money because it's still better than where they used to work. But what about the Americans that were born here that can't go anywhere else to work, that do have a certain standard of living, and now they're out of a job? At the entry level stuff, yes, you have, Latinos and Mexicans working on farms, and Tyson Chicken lays off 2,000 American workers and then brings in a bunch of Mexicans to work that same Tyson Chicken farm, and therefore the chicken you buy at the grocery store is cheaper because the Mexican employees take less money. What about those Americans that are out of jobs? That is as close you get to a bare minimum entry level job as you can get, just plucking chickens and working on a chicken farm, and Americans are displaced. Then you've got these others that are working in processing plants or on the floor of Walmart, or actually almost every year Walmart is fined $10 million for hiring illegal immigrants. But they hire so many of them that $10 million fine is smaller than paying Americans to do the work because the immigrants will take less. It's a new form of just bringing in slave labor, indentured servitude, people that'll accept less, and hurting Americans. And corporations will do it because they're allowed to do it. The only way this ends is if you close the border. If you're not allowed to hire illegal immigrants, if instead of a $10 million slap on the wrist, it's 10% of your income. You get rid of these visas. That's the only way you're going to improve things. And if you want to know, well, why did Europe and why did Canada and why did America, why did they want to open the borders? Because Social Security is going insolvent. There's not enough young people to support the Ponzi scheme that is Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, because they only work when there's few old people and lots of young people. But right now we have lots of old people and few young people. And therefore, just like all Ponzi schemes, it falls apart. And that's when you realize, oh, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, they're all Ponzi schemes. Same thing with NHS and maybe, is it the NIS, National Institute, whatever, Canada's health system and Britain's health system and all of these other health systems that are out there that are socialist. They're all Ponzi schemes. You need lots of healthy young people paying into a system and being taxed so that they pay for the few old people. But since these feminists and wackadoos have ruined marriage in themselves to the point men don't want to get married anymore, and men don't want to have kids anymore, and men don't want to be part of the system anymore, now we don't have enough young people. So they said, hey, we'll open up the borders. All these immigrants will come here and work, and then we'll tax them, we'll make them citizens, and they will support the Ponzi scheme that we've got in place for our national systems. And they opened the border, and a bunch of these people flooded in, and instead of going right to work, instead of finding jobs, instead of bolstering the system they became a part of, what did they do? Gimme, I want, give me. And so they got their free phones and their free debit cards and their free housing at our tax expense. And then when they were supposed to kind of get on their feet and go out and find a job, what did they do? Gimme. I like being on this system. I like America. America gives me things for free, and I don't have to work. And then when we say get to work, what do? They protest. No, I don't want to work. Give me free things. And so now you didn't get a young generation or younger group of fighting age men to work hard to prop up the failing Ponzi scheme that is our social systems. Instead, you just added 10 million other people that are now on the social systems. And now everybody's broke. How'd that work out for you? This is the fight. So if you want to know what the hell's going on and why Vivek and why Elon are getting just absolutely lambasted by the America First crowd, it's because they don't understand they don't see what we see. They see, I'm a pharmaceutical CEO, I'm a tech billionaire. We only use them for the smart people. We only use them for the brilliant minds. Great, but not everybody does. A lot of companies misuse these visas to bring in cheap labor to replace American workers. And then those American workers, they're out. They don't get to stay in the cutting edge. They don't get to stay employed. They aren't earning that 120 grand a year again, and they did nothing wrong. The only thing they did is want health care, want benefits, want a good salary. And the company said, no, we'll just give it to somebody else.